Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we are doing something just a little bit different.
Yeah, we're definitely shifting the vibe today.
Right, we're kind of turning down the lights, metaphorically speaking. I mean, if you are driving, please keep your lights on.
Oh, absolutely. Do not turn your headlights off.
Please don't do that. But, you know, mentally we are settling in for a conversation that sits right at this weird intersection. It's like a ghost story meets a therapy session.
And it really is a masterclass in psychosomatic medicine, too, which is a strange mix when you think about it.
It is. Usually we keep all those things in separate boxes, right?
Exactly. Doctors handle the physical body, artists handle the soul, and the therapists handle the mind.
But the source material we are looking at today just takes a sledgehammer right to those walls.
It really does. It suggests that those things aren't just connected, but that they are literally the exact same engine.
The same engine. I love that. So let's get into it. We are unpacking session 324 of the Seth Material.
Right, and for anyone who might be new to this, the Seth Material is a massive body of work that was channeled by Jane Roberts back in the 1960s and 70s.
Yep, and we are looking specifically at the session recorded on Monday, March 6, 1967.
But before we get too deep into the metaphysics of it all,
Yeah.
we do have some mandatory housekeeping to get out of the way.
Right. We need to make sure we are giving credit where it is absolutely due.
Everything we are discussing today comes directly from the Seth Material, which is published by the New Awareness Network.
We are really just your guides on this deep dive. They are the ones holding the actual map.
So if this conversation sparks something in you today, we strongly encourage you to go directly to the source.
Please do. You can visit the New Awareness Network website and their bookstore at sethcenter.com/early-sessions.
And specifically, we are talking about the Early Sessions Book 7 today. Seriously, go get the books.
Yeah, we are summarizing a lot here, but the text itself has this incredible density that you really just need to experience for yourself.
And a quick legal declaration before we jump in. This deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Right, we aren't medical doctors. We aren't spiritual gurus. We are just two researchers breaking down a really fascinating text for you.
Okay, so what is our actual mission for today's deep dive?
Well, the mission is to answer a question that I think probably haunts every single creative or intelligent person at some point.
Which is, why do I feel physically sick when I'm not creating?
Yes, and perhaps even more disturbingly, is my politeness actually destroying my physical body?
Is being polite making you sick? It sounds like a clickbait headline, doesn't it?
It totally does. But when you actually read through session 324, it's presented as a very literal mechanical diagnosis.
But we should probably set the scene first.
It's a good idea. So it's 1967, Elmira, New York.
The context here is just so vital. 1967 is the summer of love, right? It's the absolute height of the counterculture movement.
Right, but inside this specific living room, it is not about flower power or peace signs.
Not at all. It is about intense, grueling psychological excavation.
And the session notes describe Jane, who the channeled entity Seth refers to as Ruburt. They describe her as feeling quite restless and energetic before they start.
Which is really interesting because she had actually had a pretty rough day leading up to that evening.
A terrible day. She had a really poor night's sleep the night before, and she was feeling physically unwell all day.
But as the actual time for the session approached, all those physical symptoms just completely vanished.
And she goes into this trance, and for those who maybe haven't read the physical descriptions of these sessions, it is not what you might expect.
Right. It's not a sleepy, peaceful, meditative trance.
Not even close. She is speaking at a really good fast pace. Her eyes are snapping wide open often.
Her voice is very active, and she is smoking cigarettes while doing all of this.
That specific image always just grounds the whole thing for me. It is not some monk sitting silently on a mountaintop.
No, it's a woman in the 1960s with a cigarette in one hand, just channeling pure cosmic wisdom. Feels very gritty and real.
And Seth, the entity speaking through her, completely matches that gritty energy. He does not waste time offering vague platitudes.
He immediately zeroes right in on that restless energy Jane was experiencing. He diagnoses the root problem instantly.
He says enormous energy is being dammed up and directed against the self.
Dammed up and directed against the self. That is such a heavy phrase.
It is. I mean, we use the word energy so casually in modern conversation. We're like, I don't have the energy for this, or that guy has bad energy.
But Seth seems to be talking about something much more literal here. almost like actual physics or hydrodynamics.
Hydrodynamics is the perfect analogy. Let's think of a river. The water itself is totally neutral.
Right, it's just raw force. If you let it flow naturally, it can power a mill or it can water an entire field.
But if you build a dam across that river and you don't provide any kind of spillway for the water doesn't just politely vanish.
No, it builds pressure. It actively pushes against the concrete wall of the dam.
And eventually it cracks the entire structure. Seth is basically arguing that creative energy works the exact same way.
He is saying it is a literal biological force. If you do not use it to create something, it will use itself to destroy something.
So in this specific case with Jane, the destruction wasn't an external explosion. She wasn't running around breaking furniture in the house.
No, the dam broke inward. The pressure turned directly into physical symptoms.
Headaches, nausea, extreme tension. The physical body literally took the hit for the mind's lack of activity.
But here's the part of the session I actually found a bit tricky to wrap my head around. Seth mentions a maturity paradox.
Right, the maturity of the personality.
Yeah, he says this internal damage happens specifically because of the maturity of the personality.
Which, on the surface, seems really unfair. Shouldn't being a more mature person make you better at handling stress?
You would certainly think so. But Seth makes a really careful distinction between basic physical energy and what we might call psychic or refined creative energy.
Like the kind of energy a child has versus an adult?
Exactly. If you are a kid, or maybe just someone who is less intellectually developed, you can burn off your excess energy just by running around the block a few times.
Motor activity just clears the ledger completely.
Right. It's pure kinetic release.
Like when my dog gets the zoomies, he just runs in circles for 10 minutes and then he's perfectly fine.
That's a great example. Yeah. But as you mature, and Seth specifically means spiritual and intellectual maturity here, that energy becomes highly specialized.
It becomes higher octane fuel.
Yes. You cannot burn off poetic energy by going for a jog. It requires a very specific type of outlet to be released.
Seth actually says it seeks outlet and must find it. The excitement need not be physical, though it will find some reflection in physical terms.
That quote is so important because it implies that the smarter and more intensely creative you are, the more specific your venting mechanism has to be.
So if I am sitting at a desk job all day long just staring at boring spreadsheets, but I am naturally a person who needs to be writing code or painting or debating philosophy,
going to the gym at 5 o'clock might help your heart health, but it is not going to cure that deep feeling of toxicity.
Precisely. The gym fixes the muscles. It does not drain the internal reservoir of creative intent.
That highly refined energy just remains completely dammed up inside you.
And because it has literally nowhere else to go, it starts attacking your biology. It becomes what Seth calls a toxic condition.
That explains that very specific type of modern exhaustion. You know the exact one I mean.
Oh, absolutely. You haven't physically moved all day. You haven't lifted anything heavier than your coffee mug, but you come home feeling poisoned.
You feel jittery but simultaneously exhausted.
That is the feeling of self-cannibalization. Your own battery is leaking acid all over your insides because it wasn't properly discharged.
And in Jane's case in 1967, this wasn't just some vague writer's block. It was rooted in a very specific, very human story of resentment.
Ah, yes, the Fell incident. This part of the text feels like a soap opera plot that somehow got buried inside a heavy metaphysical text.
It really does read like a drama. So let's peel back the curtain a bit on Jane's career at that time.
Right. She had written a manuscript for an ESP book, and she was actively trying to get it published.
And she was dealing with a specific publisher who is referred to in the text simply as Fell.
And Fell just wasn't feeling the book.
Well, the fascinating thing is that it wasn't even an outright rejection at first. It was the specific way he handled the interaction.
Seth notes that Ruburt felt that Fell did not share any enthusiasm from the very beginning.
That lack of enthusiasm is almost worse than a flat-out no. Indifference is an absolute killer for a creative person.
It really is. And Seth contrasts this interaction with another figure named Wollheim.
Right. Wollheim also didn't end up publishing the book.
So on paper, the exact same result happened with both men. No publishing deal.
But Jane had absolutely no resentment toward Wollheim. None at all.
Why? Because Wollheim was actually enthusiastic about the project. He validated the core work even if he couldn't buy it.
Exactly. Fell, on the other hand, treated the entire thing like a cold, sterile business transaction.
So the core wound she suffered here wasn't actually about failure in the market. It was about invalidation of her creative soul.
Yes. It was the sheer lack of resonance that hurt her. But here is the trap, and this is where you, the listener, really need to pay close attention.
Because Jane is inherently a good person.
Right. Ruburt is nice. He didn't want to lash out at Fell. He didn't want to be rude or aggressive to a publisher.
And this leads to what Seth calls the ricochet.
The ricochet effect. Imagine for a second you are holding a drawn bow and arrow.
Okay, I've got the bow drawn back.
You have drawn the string all the way back. You are absolutely furious at the target in front of you.
But at the very last second, my conscience kicks in and says, no, it is wrong to shoot arrows at people.
So you don't release the arrow forward, but you also are too tense to just lower the bow gently.
So the tension just snaps violently backward.
And the arrow hits the archer instead of the target.
Seth puts this incredibly bluntly. He says since he did not want to hurt anyone, this ricocheted affecting him.
That is the hidden cost of civility. The anger genuinely exists. The energy has already been generated.
If you refuse to send that energy outwards simply because you are trying to be nice, you are actively volunteering to become the target of your own anger.
That is a genuinely terrifying concept. It basically frames everyday politeness as a potential form of self-harm.
In this specific context, it absolutely is self-harm, but Seth goes even deeper than just the publishing drama.
He doesn't just leave it at Jane was mad at a publisher. He pulls that psychological thread all the way back to her childhood.
This is where the session suddenly turns into deep psychoanalysis. The father complex.
I was honestly really surprised to see this in the text. It felt very Freudian for a channeled entity to bring up.
It definitely overlaps with traditional psychology. Seth connects the publisher Fell directly to Rupert's father.
It's a textbook transference mechanism. The publisher represents the ultimate authority figure, the gatekeeper, the provider of success and validation.
So when Fell completely withdrew his enthusiasm, Ruburt didn't just see a bad businessman rejecting a book.
He saw his own father abandoning him all over again.
Which means the physical reaction, the sheer blinding intensity of the sickness, wasn't really about the book deal anymore.
No, the book was just the immediate trigger. Seth says it caused an unfortunate comparison between Fell and Rupert's father.
And here's the real kicker of that whole analysis. Seth says Ruburt reacted as Rupert's mother reacted when deserted by the father.
Wait, so he is literally mimicking his mother's exact reaction to his father's abandonment.
Exactly. He is replaying an incredibly old childhood script.
He saw firsthand how his mother handled being abandoned.
Which was very likely through severe distress, through physical symptoms, and through deep internalization of the pain.
And he unconsciously adopted those exact same coping mechanisms as an adult.
Though Seth is careful to clarify that he didn't adopt the actual disease his mother had, but rather the symptoms of her distress. That distinction is so important. He isn't catching his mother's literal illness. He is catching her psychological coping strategy.
Which unfortunately happened to be physical illness. It is learned behavior manifesting on a biological level.
It's like sympathetic resonance between two tuning forks.
The father or the publisher strikes a harsh note, and the child or the author immediately starts vibrating with the mother's historical pain.
And all of this complex trauma is happening entirely subconsciously.
Jane is just sitting in her living room thinking, I have a terrible headache and I am annoyed about a book.
She doesn't even realize she is reenacting a full-scale Greek tragedy inside her own nervous system.
Which perfectly explains why the dammed-up energy was so massive.
Right. If it were truly just a standard business deal falling through, you'd be annoyed for a day and move on.
But because it accidentally tapped into the father abandonment circuit, the energy was practically nuclear.
And because Jane is so polite, she tried to contain a nuclear explosion completely inside her own biology.
Which brings us perfectly to the apple cart metaphor. This might honestly be my favorite visual image in the entire session.
It is so brilliant because it is just so instantly visual and funny.
I want to read the exact quote because it captures the dark absurdity of the situation so well.
Go for it.
Seth says, when he attempts to restrain himself too vigorously, he automatically upsets the apple cart, so to speak, and it is on his head that the apples in cart fall.
It's pure slapstick comedy. It's like a Buster Keaton movie.
You are trying so incredibly hard to hold everything perfectly steady, to be the good, restrained, polite person.
That the intense physical effort of the restraint itself is what causes the entire collapse.
And the collapse isn't external. You don't knock over somebody else's cart in the street. You drop the whole thing right on your own head.
The apples represent the mess, right? The emotional fallout and the physical symptoms.
By trying so desperately to avoid making a small social mess by being rude, you end up creating a biological catastrophe by making yourself sick.
So if we are all walking around every day balancing these heavy apple carts on our heads, terrified of dropping them,
What is the actual alternative? Just throwing apples at people's heads?
well, Seth does kind of imply that throwing an apple might actually be healthier for your physical body than dropping the cart on yourself.
But thankfully, he proposes a much better third option, aggressive creativity.
Aggressive creativity. It sounds like an underground punk rock genre.
It really does. But it is the ultimate antidote to the dam. Seth is very specific about this mechanism.
The energy absolutely must be used. It cannot be wished away with happy thoughts.
It must be actively directed into exciting, creative ways having to do with his intuitions, intellect, and creative work.
He mentions poetry specifically for Jane. He says the poetry is his best touchstone here.
Yes. And he also talks about a dream book that Jane was supposedly working on at the time.
The resentment she held toward the publisher had completely stopped her from working on that new book.
It becomes a vicious, self-feeding cycle. You are mad about work, so you stop working.
Stopping the work dams up your creative energy. The dammed up energy makes you physically sick.
And being physically sick makes you not want to work even more.
And then you start projecting that sense of failure into the entire future.
Seth specifically notes that Ruburt stopped sending out material entirely. He projected the resentment against all other publishers for a while.
That is the ultimate death spiral for a creator, when you stop sending out material completely.
When you completely stop the outward flow of output, you permanently seal the dam.
You essentially guarantee that the internal pressure will build until the banks burst.
Seth points out that it is a very healthy sign that she had recently started trying again.
The simple physical act of mailing a manuscript, just putting it in an envelope and dropping it in the post, is a crucial release valve.
It is an act of deep faith, too. It is a physical way of saying, I am still a creator, regardless of what the external response is.
Exactly. The external response is completely secondary to the health of the creator.
The physical health comes from maintaining the flow of energy, not from getting a paycheck.
Okay, so we have established the core mechanism here. Damned energy plus resentment plus politeness equals sickness.
But Seth doesn't just stop with the publisher drama. He gives us a real-time, everyday example that happened just days before the trance session.
This brings us to the incident of the late-night visitors.
And this segment is going to be excruciatingly relatable for anyone listening who identifies as an introvert or a chronic people-pleaser.
Let's set the timeline for this specific incident. It's Friday, March 3, 1967.
So this is exactly 3 days before the session we are analyzing.
Right. On Friday morning, Jane gets a phone call. We don't know exactly who it was on the other end of the line.
But Seth says she felt put off by the caller. She felt like she was being stalled or dismissed, and she was furious about it.
But did she scream at the person on the phone and hang up?
Of course not. She is a nice person. She completely swallowed the anger in the moment.
She tried to soothe herself with positive suggestions instead. You know, the usual stuff. It's fine. Everything happens for a reason. I'm completely calm.
Taking the high road.
Taking the high road straight to hell in this particular case.
Because the intense anger didn't just magically vanish into the ether. It just went down into the basement of her subconscious.
So let's fast forward to late that same night. It is nearly midnight.
Jane is already feeling physically quite poor because of the suppressed rage she had been carrying around since the morning phone call.
She is tired. She is in physical pain. And then, unexpectedly, visitors arrive at her door.
Midnight visitors. I mean, it's the 60s, so maybe dropping in at midnight was slightly more normal back then.
Even in the 60s, if someone knocks on my door at midnight, I am army crawling behind the sofa and pretending I'm not home.
I am right there with you. The imposition is just timeless. She absolutely did not want them there.
She wanted to sleep. She desperately wanted to be alone. But what did she do?
She let them in.
She let them in. She played the perfect polite hostess. She made them coffee. She nodded and smiled at their stories.
And Seth observes this so clearly. He says again he said nothing, and the symptoms grew all the stronger as his desire grew to tell them to leave.
It is a terrifyingly direct correlation. The more intensely she wanted to scream, "Get out of my house," the more violently her head pounded.
The scream has to go somewhere. If it does not come out of the mouth, it simply vibrates against the inside of the skull.
The physical body is literally acting out the fierce rejection that the social voice refuses to speak out loud.
It forces us to completely redefine what politeness actually is. We are taught from birth that it is an absolute virtue.
But Seth is strongly suggesting that in this specific scenario, politeness was an active form of violence against the self.
It really raises the question of who are you actually protecting when you act polite?
You are protecting the guest's temporary feelings at the severe expense of your own long-term physical integrity.
And Seth implies that this is a fundamentally bad biological trait.
But wait a minute. Jane had been doing positive affirmations earlier in the day, right?
Yes, she was actively trying to fix her mindset after the bad phone call.
So why didn't that work to protect her? Seth gets surprisingly technical here about how suggestions actually work and this concept of the time lag.
This is a really crucial technical point for anyone listening who is into visualization or positive affirmations.
We usually think time lag means I think a positive thought today and it manifests in my life next week.
Seth says absolutely not. Time lag isn't about the ticking of a clock. It is entirely about the intensity of the emotion.
Intensity.
He specifically says the most intensive will triumph. Imagine a literal balancing scale in your mind.
Okay, I'm picturing the scale.
On one side, you have Jane's polite, positive affirmations from the morning. I am peaceful. I am calm. Let's say those register at a level 3 intensity. They are gentle and hopeful.
And on the other side of the scale.
On the other side, you have the furious, burning rage at the phone call and the desperate, screaming desire for the midnight guest to leave. That negative emotion is a level 10 intensity.
It's basically the hurricane up against a gentle summer breeze.
Exactly. And the hurricane is always going to win that fight. The negative suggestion, the suppressed anger, was far more emotionally powerful than the positive suggestion.
So the body just obeyed the stronger biological signal.
The time lag for the positive suggestion is effectively infinite because it was never, ever strong enough to overtake the negative one.
That is a massive takeaway for everyday life. We think we can just journal away a terrible day with 5 minutes of forced gratitude before bed.
But if you then spend 3 solid hours seething with suppressed rage while staring at the ceiling, the gratitude journal is completely useless.
It's a literal battle of internal energies. You cannot fight a raging forest fire with a plastic water pistol.
If your internal anger is a 10, your creative counteraction needs to be a 10. You need a cathartic release that perfectly matches the intensity of the suppression.
Which naturally leads us right to the ultimate solution. Seth is very specific about exactly what kind of work actually heals this damage.
Right, it cannot just be simple, busy work to pass the time.
This is section 5 of our breakdown, throes of creativity versus humdrum ritual.
I really love his use of the word throes here. We usually only use it for throes of passion or throes of death.
It inherently implies being fully in the grip of something incredibly powerful and overwhelming.
And that is exactly the state that Seth prescribes as the cure. He says work for work's sake will not do for him.
He explicitly calls a humdrum creative ritual defeating.
That really flies in the face of a lot of standard modern mental health advice, doesn't it?
It does. Usually you hear things like, just do something small to feel better. Just color in an adult coloring book or try knitting.
But Seth is saying that for a certain type of person, that might actually make things worse.
For someone with Jane's level of maturity and high energy, yes.
If you have high-octane rocket fuel, heavily damped up inside your system, and you try to burn it off by quietly lighting a vanilla candle, it won't do a thing.
The explosive fuel remains right there. You need to launch an actual rocket to burn it.
Seth says the work must be exciting, highly creative, and challenging.
It has to scare you just a little bit. It has to demand your absolute full intellect.
It has to fully engage the deep intuition. If you are just going through the comfortable motions, writing the exact same kind of blog post you've written 100 times, or doing repetitive data entry,
it doesn't drain the specific, intense reservoir that is actively causing the sickness.
So if you are a high-level creative person, taking it easy is actually the completely wrong prescription for your burnout.
Paradoxically, yes, it is. If the burnout is caused by suppression, then the only real cure is intensity.
You need to do something that truly matters to you, something that carries a real risk of failure, something that gets the blood actively moving through your veins.
And if you manage to do that, if you genuinely exhaust yourself with good, hard, challenging creative work, what happens to your sleep?
The sleep finally becomes deeply therapeutic. This is the really beautiful natural cycle that Seth describes.
If you use the intense energy constructively during your waking hours, your inner intuitions are finally set free at night.
They don't have to stay up all night desperately managing your suppressed conscious anger.
They can actually just do their proper job, which is to heal, repair, and refresh the entire personality.
But if you go to bed mad and fully damned up,
then the deeper self shows its true face. The physical symptoms just completely take over the body.
The healing intuitions are totally blocked by the wall of resentment. You wake up feeling tired, The dam is still totally full, and the destructive cycle just repeats itself.
It really reframes the whole concept of creativity. It isn't just a fun weekend hobby.
No, it acts as a literal immune system for the soul.
That is the perfect way to put it. Creativity is the immune system of the personality.
If you suppress it, you essentially become immunocompromised against everyday stress.
Okay, we have covered a truly massive amount of ground here today. The dam, the resentment, the apple cart, the late-night visitors.
Let's try to synthesize all of this for you, the listener. What is the real actionable takeaway from all this 1967 channeling?
I think the first major one is the concept of the old time bombs. We touched on it briefly with the father complex, but Seth uses the specific chilling phrase.
Yes, bring that quote up again. It's one that really sticks with you.
Seth says any serious difficulty here can automatically set forth old time bombs that have in the past been denied energy.
We all have them buried inside us. Deep traumas, slight rejections, profound sadnesses from 5, 10, or even 20 years ago.
We buried them deep down. We intentionally denied them energy at the time because we couldn't handle them.
So they are just sitting there in the dark, completely dormant.
Waiting for a random spark. And the spark is our current suppressed energy.
When you dam up your energy today, simply because of a mildly rude email, a bad boss, or a lingering midnight guest, that new pressure doesn't just create a brand new headache.
It reaches down and detonates the old bombs. It violently wakes up all the ghosts of your past.
So aggressively dealing with your creativity today, expressing your true self right now, is actually a functional way of keeping your past from exploding into your present.
You're basically performing daily maintenance on your own timeline.
You are keeping the historical ghost fully at rest, simply by keeping your current river flowing freely.
That puts an incredibly high level of stakes on just writing a poem or painting a canvas.
It does, but it also gives us immense personal agency. You aren't just a helpless victim of a random virus or a fundamentally cruel universe.
You are the chief mechanic of your own internal energy system. If the engine is completely overheating, you have to stop idling. You have to drive the car.
Stop idling and drive the car. I really like that framing.
So for you listening right now, if you feel this deep resonance, if you constantly feel that jittery, toxic stuckness we've been talking about, the real advice is do not try to relax.
Do not just try to calm down. Do not force yourself to be perfectly polite if the effort is literally physically hurting you.
Find a tangible way to release the energy, write the fiercely angry letter, and then just burn it.
Paint the most chaotic, ugly picture you can imagine. Run the absolute fastest sprint you can manage.
Do something that perfectly matches the high intensity of the suppressed feeling.
And if you somehow have visitors knock on your door at midnight tonight,
kick them out immediately, or at the very least, just excuse yourself and go straight to bed.
Your physical body is the only house you actually have to live in forever. Do not burn it down just to make some random guest comfortable for a single hour.
That requires real courage, though. The sheer courage to be perceived as rude.
It definitely does. But just look at Jane's situation. She was physically incapacitated. She couldn't work on her book. She was in agonizing pain.
Was the midnight politeness actually worth all of that suffering? Seth would say absolutely not.
It's a really hard lesson to swallow, but a deeply necessary one.
Before we wrap things up today, I do want to circle back to the source material one last time. We only covered a single session today, session 324 out of literally hundreds.
It is barely a single drop in a massive ocean. The Seth material is incredibly vast. It covers the fundamental nature of reality, the complex physics of time, and the deep structure of the human soul.
If you found this specific breakdown useful at all, you really owe it to yourself to go deeper into the text.
Visit sethcenter.com/SoSaid, the early sessions. Buy the actual books. Support the incredible work of the New Awareness Network.
Absolutely. Let these books completely upset your internal apple cart. It is so much better than dropping the cart on your own head later on.
I really couldn't have said it any better myself.
So here is our final challenge to you. As soon as this deep dive ends, do not just passively scroll to the next one in your feed.
Do not just open up social media and start swiping.
Go make something immediately. Write a single sentence. Draw a harsh line on a piece of paper. Fix a broken shelf in your garage.
Do literally anything that moves energy from the inside to the outside.
Clear the dam.
Clear the dam.
This has been the Deep Dive. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next reality.
Good night, everyone.
And we are clear. Man, that old time bombs concept is definitely going to stick with me for a while.
It's incredibly heavy, right?
Yeah.
I was actually sitting here thinking about my own fell moments from the past.
Like times you didn't get a jaw you wanted or a creative pitch just fell totally flat in the room.
Exactly. And analyzing how I actually reacted to them in the moment.
Let me guess you were super polite about the rejection. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity.
And then I immediately went home, ate an entire large pizza by myself, and had a blinding migraine for 2 straight days.
The pizza ricochet effect? An
Yeah.
absolute classic.
It really is. I was just violently stuffing the righteous anger down with extra pepperoni.
And Seth would tell you that you should have just written an absolutely scathing essay about the flawed interview process instead.
I would have saved myself thousands of calories and a massive headache.
Well, next time. Next time I am going to be aggressively creative when I get rejected. I think I'll write an entire rock opera about the experience.
Honestly, I would definitely listen to that.
Be careful what you wish for, or I will actually do it. Anyway, let's get out of here. I really think I need to go find a pen and paper right now.
Right behind you.